So what we've got here is a company that has gone through a price round, like a Series seed round. They've got investors, they've got stakeholders, employees, so on, right? Vesting schedules apply to co-founders and they apply to employees. Now, in this particular case, this isn't a very large and complex cap table, but it is quite representative of what we would see in a relatively young startup. And you'll notice right away that there's a whole bunch of people here who have just the standard vesting schedule, right? The very like straightforward 1 year cliff, 4 year total. But if all of this was in a spreadsheet, here are the people, here are the quantities, the grant dates, and here's the vesting schedule. I am good to go. Then a month goes by. And now your spreadsheet's looking out of date. Why? Because individuals who are actively vesting every single month, they're getting a slice of the pie. And how do you track that? So you could open up your spreadsheet every single month and make a change if you're really, really motivated. Or you could use something like Mantle. And by the way, this is all available on the free plan. And you can track your entire equity plan, and you can have multiple equity plans if it's complicated, but you track all of it visually, right? So in this particular case, just as an example, look at the difference between July and August of 2022. The vested outstanding number goes up because you have a mix of different people who are vesting up, and you don't want to go back, do the math, and adjust a spreadsheet. And of course, you could construct a fancier spreadsheet, but then now you're maintaining that. Is that really worth your time? It can get messy very, very quickly. So stale vesting schedules means your cap table is out of date, and that's not a good look. And you always want to have like an up-to-date cap table that's ready to go in your data room for any kind of conversation that comes up. Now, let's go over how we would like put this into practice, right? I'm going to show a couple of scenarios. We'll actually go through a whole roller coaster journey with one of the individuals here, right? Let's pick Sophia Lee as an example. So what we'll do with this individual is we will go through a promotion scenario, and then we'll go through the whole life cycle of what it looks like to assign a time-based vesting schedule, to assign a milestone-based vesting schedule, and then what does a termination scenario look like? Now, Mantle was designed to make this really easy. You just go into draft and start typing things. But what's the fun in that when you have a built-in AI assistant? So I'm just going to use Mantle Clerk live in Product Hunt, by the way. So please give us an upvote, and I'll show you how this goes. Right. So let's create a new option grant for Sophia Lee with a grant date of today. We will offer her 50,000 units. Use the latest 409A valuation for the exercise price, right? Or whatever we want to call it, the strike price. And that's it. Like I could obviously, upload some paperwork and also make that happen. You can start all the way back from like an offer letter. And if you have a signed offer letter, just upload it and let Mantle Clerk do the work. Or in this case, I just kind of typed it up, right? And this will go through pretty quickly, but as it's thinking, let's discuss like where the scenario is going, right? So we will create two option grants. One's going to have a time-based vesting schedule, and one will have a milestone-based vesting schedule. For the time-based vesting schedule, right now we have the standard one. But if I wanted something different, I could do it very easily, right? I would just go to vesting templates. I would go to new template, and let's start with the time-based one. And because we want to get cute with this, and the standard vesting schedule is too boring for us, let's say we're going to switch it up a little bit. We'll say 1 year cliff, monthly vesting for 5 total years. We can also use AI to kind of crunch the math for us. But if you're comfortable with what it is, you can obviously just go ahead and type that out. So as it's thinking of that, now we know what time-based vesting we're going to do. I will do the conditional one next, right? So this looks correct to me. 60 total months. The frequency is monthly. There is no immediate vest because This is like brand new. There's going to be a cliff period, 12 months. It's going to be 20%, so 1/5. And these are little nuances that you would discuss with your law firm. But effectively, you can set like if you want it to vest on a particular date, like the first of every month or the last day of every month, and then you can set your rounding, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And I've got this brand new time-based vesting schedule. So we'll go back here to clerk and say, okay, here's a proposal. This all looks correct to me. I'm going to flip this. It does warn me that the 409A is pretty old, and that is true. That if you're in an American startup, this could be problematic. And clerk is flagging that. And if you were talking to a law firm, they would flag it as well. But anyway, so the only thing I'm going to do here is say change the vesting schedule to 1-year cliff, monthly vesting for 5 years, and generate a draft. And we'll let that go. So as that's going, let's talk about the second grant as well, which is going to be based on a conditional milestone, also known as performance-based vesting. So Andrea kind of gave some principles of what to think about when it comes to conditional vesting. So I'll just give some examples of real cap tables I've seen, right? So for example, in a health tech startup, we'll typically see milestones such as becoming an approved vendor at a hospital, or clinics and clinical directors being signed on, achieving FDA clearance, and so on. If you're in deep tech, there's going to be milestones around acquisition of a manufacturing facility for hardware, on filing of patents, and so on. Consumer tech will see milestones related to retail stores and expansion, geographic or otherwise, like client base. Sales RevOps, very common. ARR, monthly daily active users, these types of targets are very common. At an executive top line level, we'll see milestones such as liquidity events before an expiry date, revenue targets, EBITDA, equity financing, and so on. Echoing what was shared earlier in the webinar, you want these to be specific, measurable, and also something that the individual can influence, because the dark side of that is if you set a couple of people on an ARR milestone, but you have an entire company contributing to it, it's going to feel very unfair where everyone helps get your company to a certain milestone, like $1 million ARR or $10 million ARR, but only one or two people are kind of winning based on that milestone. So if you go down that path, do consider structuring it so that it benefits everyone proportionally. And hey, this is a safe space. I'm also going to give some not so good examples, right? So some examples I've seen, and of course, I don't know the full story, right? I'm not like in these startups and why I'm not in the decision-making room. So it's easy for me to sit from a sideline and say, that looks a little bit interesting. But I've seen milestones that are based on hours of service that have been completed by consultants. So what happens there is, I guess founders are reviewing timesheets and they're looking through how many hours were done, and then they're checking off the thing one at a time, right? I don't know if that juice is worth the squeeze in terms of like the time it takes to administer such, not to mention time spent as an input, not an outcome. So that's the other thing to consider. We've also seen arbitrary metrics like, uh, literally I'm quoting this from an example from a real cap table, which is performance score, right? So performance score is obviously something that's defined arbitrarily by the company, presumably during the job offer stage or so on. So whatever performance score is assigned to the person, presumably at the end of the year or a performance review or so on, it will unlock certain tranches. So something to consider, like how much time you want to spend. So we'll get to the conditional one in a bit. Let's look at the time-based one. So we've created a draft option grant for Sophia, 50,000 units, 4 cents a piece. This is my vesting schedule. That's a new one I've created. I'll just go to view result, and there it is. So Mantle makes it like really, really easy to do this. You can even like push through your board approval and your signature and so on, right? So now let's go to the next one. And I'll say, create a new grant. for Sophia, also with a grant date of today, but leave the vesting schedule blank, right? And this is because I'm going to go into here to my conditional milestone template, and I will set a condition. So let's say this is going to be an ARR target for simplicity. So 1 million ARR in the next 12 months. So expiry date is July 15, 2027. So that's an example, right? Like you want this to be time bound. Like we don't want 1 million ARR 6 years from now. By then the startup may shut down. That's not going to be helpful. And we can actually make this a little bit more interesting and just say something like this 1 to 5 million, and then you can you know you can really try to get clever with this, right? Like you can see where this is going. So I'll just kind of skip ahead to 5, and then we can say like, oh, you get 25, 25, and like 50 or something, right? That's your full conditional allocation for what could be a reasonable ARR target. So we'll say 50,000 units again, and attach that to my grant. So Mantle makes this really easy. And we'll see what the impact of the cap table is once I've accomplished all of this, right? So we'll say yes, go into here. I've already got this one here. I'm just going to say the board has approved it. Although, again, you could do it in platform or you could do it off platform. No big deal. And then if you want to see the impact of this on your cap table without having to go through the whole signature process, you do it very easily by simply going to the main cap table view and saying include drafts. And you'll notice that the options outstanding count jumps up because it's incorporating that draft security into your main cap table, right? So obviously it's assuming that the person will vest fully, but that is a different consideration, right, based on what it is. So we'll go into here. So I've got my thing for Sophia. This is the other one. And in this one, I'm going to say ARR target, right? So that's the one I just created. I'm just going to go ahead and apply that. We'll say board approval date is today, and then I will publish both of these. I'm moving through this quickly because obviously the focus of this webinar is to give you commentary on how the vesting schedules work. But if you're interested in how our platform works, we have tons of webinars for those. So there we have it. I can see where Sophia stands overall in the company directly in my main cap table view. Obviously, the percentage ownership has gone up. You can click on the individual, see all of their holdings all at once, and it also gives you a preview of how they vest over time, right? So this is effectively set it and forget it, right? Like once you've done the work, which you would typically do upon hiring the person, you're done. Like you don't have to whip out a spreadsheet, have it be out of sync, and so on. Now, let's say 12 months go by, 13 months go by, and you're trying to figure out how where's Sophia at? Has she met the milestones and what's the vested quantity, right? Of course, you can start to dig through it, open up, export a spreadsheet, or look for a summary here, or you can just ask Mantle Clerk and be like, how many options has Sophia vested so far? And you'll get an answer. So it makes it really easy to interface with something as complex as a cap table with Mantle Clerk. So we'll give that a few seconds, and then I will go over the termination scenario so you can see where that goes. So right now, Sophia's vested total of 50,000, and the other two are granted today, and they've not yet vested any shares, which makes a lot of sense, right? I could make a change and say, you know what, this has been met, right? Let's say for simplicity, it just happened today. I'll say update progress, and we'll go into that particular grant, and we'll see that, let's say the ARR target was hit. So that's what it That's where Sophia's thing is going to be. So run that again and see if it will pick that up. So while it's doing that, let's go over the termination scenario, right? So now our expectation is to see that Sophia's vested quantity has moved up from 50,000 units to it should be 62 and a half. In this case, math simple. So yeah, you could run it in your head, but it does help to have it uh, sort of calculated for you. So there it is, 62 and a half. Now let's say we want to terminate a stakeholder. What does that look like? And what does that mean for your entire option plan, right? Um, Now this is like completely a true story where we will see cap tables where employees, sometimes even co-founders and executives, have left the company, but someone somewhere didn't get around to executing the termination flow in their equity management platform or a spreadsheet. And guess what? The person's still vesting, and that's a very awkward conversation to have with a former employee. And you say, "Oh, you know what? Like, you actually were terminated 3 months ago. We kind of need to claw that back, but we're not going to buy it back." And it is such a mess. You do not want to do that. So Mantle helps in a few ways. If you happen to use HRIS, such as Rippling, we've got the integration in place. But if you do not, that's okay. You can simply um, find the person in here and go through the termination flow, right? And I'm not going to run through the whole flow here, but we'll just kind of give you an example where I'll say, okay, the termination date is today. Um, so what does that look like? Like, you're obviously going to terminate all of these grants, and then it will give you a preview of um, what your plan changes like, right? So there's a bunch of unvested stock options that will now return to our plan. So not something you need to calculate, especially when you have a person with multiple grants, which is very common again, and it's something that is encouraged as well, right? Um, One last bullet point I will share on the vesting schedule piece, which is a question we get, is if I promote someone, if I top up a person, do I keep adding new vesting schedules? And the short answer is yes, you stagger them, right? So think of it this way. This is the analogy I read a while back. If you hire someone and you tell them, hey, your salary is, for simplicity, $100,000 a year, you're not going to give them $400,000 up front and say, please work hard for the next 4 years, right? It's the same idea is if someone's been working for you for 2 years, you promote them, you give them a top-up grant, you will set a certain quantity and you will set a vesting date that starts from that date, right? So the encouragement there is, hey, we would love it if you continued working here for 4 more years, right? And that's the idea of staggering vesting schedules. But obviously, the complication there is, um, well, how much have they vested? Just ask Mantle Clerk, and it'll get it done for you. So that's it for the demo.